I think any entrepreneur has that fear that, it's all about the what if. What if I'm not good enough? Or what if people don't like me? Or what if I can't make enough money doing this to support the lifestyle I want? So, there have been a lot of what ifs over the last 10 years, but I just stuck with it because I loved it so much and I believed in it so much.
Welcome to Beating the Odds, the podcast about successful minority businesses that will inspire, educate, and inform you. Your host is Mike Dewey, entrepreneur and founder of Hidden Star, a 501c3 nonprofit that has helped hundreds of minority entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. Discover and celebrate minority business success with Beating the Odds.
Hi, this is Mike Dewey, and on the show today is Amanda Holder. Amanda, how are you?
I'm excellent, Mike. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story and inspiring a whole lot of people. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up and went to school and all of that?
Sure. Yeah. So I was born in Carmel, just outside of Monterey, California, right on the Central Coast. And then grew up in Gilroy, Hollister, eventually ended up in Fresno, graduated from Fresno State, go Bulldogs. And then I moved away. I kind of hit the road and traveled all over the country for work in various cities and, lived here, traveled there, settled down in San Luis Obispo about 12 years ago and have not looked back since.
Well, kind of pretty out there.
It's gorgeous out here. Yeah, I say all the time, I live where people vacation, and that is very much true.
Yeah. So can you give us a little bit of a short description of your business?
Yeah. So my company is Amanda Holder Events. We are a full service wedding and event planning company. So we do anywhere between, 40 to 60 events each year. Mostly weddings, but also, dinners, anniversaries, birthdays, fundraisers, and other galas, occasionally chamber events and things like that. So we've been pretty busy over the last 10 years and have built quite a business for ourselves.
Good for you. That's fantastic. Were any of your family members or friends entrepreneurs growing up?
Oh, yeah. So my dad has always been self-employed. He ran a gas and service station for Mobil for a number of years and then started building pools and spas and outdoor landscapes like you might see at a Vegas resort. Okay. And did that for a number of years before he retired. He's a patented inventor as well and an avid fisherman and golfer. So he's been an entrepreneur his whole life, and I guess that really rubbed off on me from a very young age because, even when I was a little girl, I was going door to door selling baked brownies to all my neighbors because I figured out pretty quickly I could buy a box for, 39 cents and sell a finished plate of brownies for $5. So that's kind of where it all began.
Well, I'm not very smart, but those seem like pretty good margins to me.
Pretty good margin.
Yeah. So what was your first real job?
Oh gosh, I was 15 and a half and I had just gotten my work permit and I was running amusement park rides at a little amusement park in Gilroy, California. At the time it was called Hecker Pass, a family adventure. And I believe it's called Gilroy Gardens now, but I ran the roller coaster and the train for about 3 months during the summer. And that was my first real gig.
I don't know a lot about roller coasters, but it seems like putting a 15-year-old kid in charge of that might not be the greatest idea in the world. But it probably speaks to how responsible you were at that age.
Yeah, very responsible. And it was a very small roller coaster. So we did a lot of corporate, company picnics and things like that. So very short track, kind of like the baby roller coaster you might see at a county fair, something like that.
Got it. And is this your first business? The wedding planning business is the first time for you?
Yes. Yeah. So this is my first sort of standalone full-time business. I started it 10 years ago. And prior to that, I held a number of positions in the corporate world doing public relations, marketing, advertising, event planning, for various companies. And, I think I always just had that entrepreneurial spirit. I always knew I wanted to be in business for myself, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I first started out. So, I kind of just took whatever job was in that realm. And 15 years later, decided to start my own wedding and event planning business.
Now, as a father of two daughters who've gotten married, I've had an extensive experience with wedding planners, and that's not easy. that is.
It is not easy.
I used to joke that our wedding planner, if someone had put a nuclear bomb in the punch bowl, she would have had a plan for that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It is a very stressful job. There is, I believe it's a USA Today poll that comes out every year, and it highlights the 5 most stressful jobs in America. An event planner is consistently in the top 5. So definitely a high level of stress. It's a lot of responsibility. This is the wedding day is the most important day of somebody's life,
Right.
to that point. And we only get one shot to make it happen, and it better be perfect, or it better appear perfect.
Yeah,
We're like little
absolutely.
ducks kind of floating on the pond, and on the surface, everything's okay, everything's great. And then underneath the water, you see our little feet paddling like crazy.
Paddling like crazy, exactly right. So,
Yes.
how did you finance the startup? Was there a lot of money required? Did you just start organizing events and it didn't require a lot of startup capital?
Yeah, so that was the really nice thing about this business in particular is the startup costs were very minimal. It was applying for a business license and getting insurance and setting up my bank account. So I think I really was, out maybe $400 or $500 to start.
Oh,
And
wow.
then, yeah, and I did a little bit of advertising here and there on some of the wedding focused and event focused, websites. But really I just started pounding the pavement. I started reaching out to vendors in the industry that were well known and well respected. And I did a lot of wining and dining. So I guess as far as startup costs go, it was a lot of, coffees and lunches and happy hours and dinners, and really just getting to know who the major players in my industry were locally and forging those relationships. And that really has become the name of the game for me over the last 10 years. Most of our business is referral based. The venues refer us, the other vendors refer us. We have a good presence on social media and our website is great. We get a little traction from that, but it really is relationships. Those are key.
So how did you know how to get going? Did you have a mentor? Did you have somebody advising you, or did you just kind of figure it out as you went?
I just kind of figured it out as I went. I had been working in the corporate world for 15 years, doing, everything from sporting events to trade shows. And I worked at an NBC TV station for a number of years, and we did a live televised wedding at 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's really where I kind of got this idea that, oh, maybe I could be a wedding planner someday. So not only was I, putting together all of the pieces for the show itself, but producing the show and selling the show and sometimes appearing on camera for the show. And then, putting together this whole live 2-hour wedding at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so that's really kind of where it started. So I took, all of the experience from all those years of doing corporate events and really what I had found as a love for weddings and events in general. And I had a couple of colleagues that were getting married at the time that had asked me to plan their weddings because they knew my experience as an event planner. And that's basically how this business was born. I just thought, I'm done with the corporate thing. I'm burnt out. I'd had 12 bosses in 5 years. And I just went out on my own.
Good for you. Were there any moments when you worried that it wouldn't work out, or did you have a sense from the beginning that this is
all the time? I think any entrepreneur has that fear that, it's all about the what if. What if I'm not good enough? Or what if people don't like me? Or what if I can't make enough money doing this to support the lifestyle I want? So, there've been a lot of what ifs over the last 10 years, but I just stuck with it because I loved it so much and I believed in it so much. And, like I said, the startup costs were relatively small. It was really just about getting in front of the right people and getting a couple of events under my belt and showing that I could do good work and really just building based on that. But even 10 years in, I still have those same fears, and now I've got 16 people who work for me. And, sometimes it's like, gosh, am I going to make payroll? When is that next booking coming in? What happens in the off season, the winter months when we're not doing any weddings? There really are no guarantees. And I think we saw that a lot with COVID and the entire events industry being shut down. So there have been a lot of fears over the years, but any good entrepreneur will tell you, you just press on.
So you mentioned you have a bunch of employees now. How many people do you have working for you now?
So I've got 16 people on staff. All of those are part-time seasonal. And I have a couple of those that are closer to full-time and year-round. But the bulk of our business happens between March and October. And so we really have sort of the winter months, quote unquote off, where we're not really executing on any events, but there is still work happening behind the scenes. And so I have a small team that does the bulk of the behind the scenes work and then a larger team that does event day execution.
Got it. And because it didn't require a whole lot of startup money, I imagine you were profitable almost from the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. Those first couple weddings, I look back now though, and I think, oh my gosh, I was charging the most ridiculously cheap price for so much work. So I was profitable right away, but I wasn't making very much money. But in the beginning, I didn't have any overhead. I was working from home. I didn't have any employees. My business license and tax and insurance was very minimal. So yeah, it was a relatively easy way to start out and be profitable pretty quickly.
Now, I'm assuming you work we always ask this question, I'm assuming you work in an industry that gives you better answers than most. What's the funniest thing that has happened to you since you started this company?
I have a whole book of stories I could tell you. I mean, when you are mixing, $100,000 plus budget for, free food and booze for guests that have all different backgrounds and personalities and alcohol tolerances. I mean, really anything can happen. And I feel like at this point we have seen it all. I will share just a couple funny stories with you. One of the weddings we did early in our career, we had a very, very nervous, anxious groom who just drank too much. There was no ill intention. He just drank more than he should have. And right before the first dance, he excused himself to the field adjacent to the dance floor to relieve himself. And went on himself and proceeded to take off his pants and run into the guest house to swap pants with one of his groomsmen. And then promptly was whisked away to the dance floor for his first dance. So that's one funny story amongst many.
Wow.
We have stumbled upon guests doing intimate things in the bushes or the trees of certain venues. We have a lot of outdoor venues here in San Luis Obispo because our weather is so nice most of the year. And we often find guests sort of wandering the property, making out in this corner or that corner. And there was definitely some more things going on at that particular wedding that my staff stumbled upon and promptly had to remove them from the property.
Well, sure, but
I mean,
you pay extra. You pay extra for that, right?
yeah, you name it, we have seen it. Fires, floods, ant infestations, a lot of alcohol related
Yeah.
things. I mean, this one isn't funny per se, but we had a best man who happened to be the groom's brother get arrested for a DUI 30 minutes prior to the ceremony because he decided to go on a beer run. And so those types of things happen. I mean, you really can. I tell people all the time, you can't make this up. I mean, there's no other industry where these types of things happen on a regular basis. So we are constantly sharing stories, on Monday mornings at the end of a long wedding weekend and sort of comparing notes with other wedding planners in the area and other vendors and, typically have a good laugh about it.
Right. No, I can only imagine how many funny stories there are. So as an entrepreneur, and you've been in business for 10 years now, so you've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad, obviously. What's been the hardest thing for you?
Oh goodness. COVID was pretty tough. I think one of the hardest things is really finding that work-life balance. As an entrepreneur, you are always on. My phone rings and I get text messages at all hours of the day and night, all through the weekend, and really have to work hard to dedicate one day off per week for myself, for self-care, for restoration, for relaxation. And had gotten pretty good about that. And then when COVID hit, I mean, it was just everything was next level. We had some major challenges during COVID with the entire industry being shut down indefinitely and having to reschedule 43 planned weddings in 2020 to 2021 to 2022, moving them from one county to another or one city from another or a venue to another because of, whatever restrictions were in place. And so really all of that, sort of quote unquote downtime for myself and finding that balance just went out the window. Coincidentally, during that same time, I was recovering from a pretty major surgery. I had been in a car accident a couple of months earlier, and in the ER, they did a CT to rule out internal bleeding, and they found a tumor in my spine. And so I spent the last week of January 2020 having a pretty expensive 8+ hour surgery and then going into recovery and physical therapy just as COVID completely shut everything down. So, not only was I dealing with these, work challenges with my industry not being able to do anything, but I was also dealing with these very personal challenges on top of everything and trying to make it all, work together. And, I mean, thank God for such an amazing staff. My team really stepped up to the plate and, did a lot of things that I wasn't able to do and helped with the postponements and, kept all of our clients calm, cool, and collected through, pretty turbulent storm for, a year and a half.
And you're all better now?
I am better now. Yeah, it has definitely been a journey. I was walking with a walker for several months and then a cane for several months after that before I was really able to stand on my 2 feet, all by myself, about 8 months in. So, it was a lot of hard work and a lot of physical therapy and a lot of alternative therapies to get there. But I stayed motivated, wanting to be of service to our clients and my team. And like I said, they stepped up and helped out as well. And, here we are 2.5 years later, I guess. And it just seems like a little blip on the radar. At the time, not so much, but in hindsight.
So who do you market to? Or do you market mainly to brides or to brides' moms?
I would say probably 75% couples and 25% parents. We really find that it's the couples who are most often reaching out to us. And then occasionally, a mother of a bride or groom or, they're reaching out and inquiring about our services. But most of our clients are couples, brides and grooms, brides and brides, grooms and grooms. And so we really, interact with them most often. And then depending on, how old they are and who's paying for the wedding, we've got interaction with the parents as well.
Right. So I bet you've got some great Bridezilla stories and some really, truly astonishingly great mother of the bride stories.
Yeah, far more Momzilla stories than Bridezilla stories. Most of our couples are, just so great and easy to work with and happy to have us and, trust us and our expertise and our knowledge and experience. And, we get some pretty overbearing moms. Maybe they got married young and didn't get to have the wedding they wanted. And so now they're planning their son's or daughter's wedding and, try to create the wedding they never had, the wedding of their dreams. And so you can definitely, overstep some boundaries. That's one of the biggest challenges, I think, for me and my team is really establishing and maintaining those boundaries, not only with our couples, but with their parents as well. And knowing when and how to gently put a mom in her place. It's an art form. But, my mom works with me on my staff as part of my team and we have a great relationship. And so I call on her a lot for advice, about situations, with Momzillas and how best to deal with it. And sometimes I just put my mom on it.
Well, for the record, my wife was awesome and my daughters were both beautiful and perfect. So,
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if you had to do one thing differently, what would you do differently?
Oh gosh. I would have started my wedding planner career sooner. I am 10 years in and still loving what I do and can't imagine doing anything else. But because it was a fairly easy industry to break into and a business to start, I wish I had started sooner, when I was in, my 20s as opposed to my 30s. So that I could have more years in this industry and more years of doing something I'm really, truly passionate about and just absolutely love so much. So, maybe in the corporate world a few years sooner than I did to start this would have been great.
Which is most important, do you think? Ambition or talent? Just a skill for what you're doing?
Oh, ambition for sure. There were a lot of things I didn't know when I first broke into this industry. And, 10 years in, there's still some things I don't know. I still learn every single weekend. My team looks at every wedding as a learning opportunity and, an experience to grow from. And so, I think just that.
All right. So if you were giving advice to a new aspiring young entrepreneur, and you are right now, what would it be?
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
Stick with it. It is difficult at times. You might doubt yourself. The people around you might doubt you, but stick with it and surround yourself with people who are loving and supportive and encouraging, but will also tell you like it is. Sometimes you need that tough love. You need to bounce ideas off of somebody and really get unbiased feedback. But if this is something you're passionate about and you really love and enjoy and are happy doing, stick with it, press forward, and just make sure you've got people in your corner who can help encourage you along the way.
Good advice always. Now, are there any specific challenges that you've faced as a female entrepreneur that you wouldn't have faced otherwise?
Oh, for sure. I think in the beginning, it was not being taken seriously, coming from the corporate world, into, my own business as a wedding planner. There are a lot more men in this industry than there are women. And I think that was definitely one thing that was very clear to me out the gate was I felt like I had to prove myself more to the men than I did to the women. And so that's where I really focused a lot of my attention, was on those relationships with the men in the industry, the caterers, the DJs, the rental companies. A lot of those are very male dominated. And so really getting in front of them and saying, look, I'm serious. I know what I'm doing. I'm serious. And, you better come along with me for the ride because we're going somewhere.
Right. Would you say that the bulk of the vendor class in the wedding industry is male dominated, but would you say that the wedding planners themselves are primarily female or male?
Primarily female. Yeah, we have very few men as wedding planners in the industry. I think there's only 2 locally in the San Luis Obispo area. There's more in larger cities, but it is a very female-dominated field in wedding planning, for sure.
Right. So this has been fascinating. You've done an amazing job. You provide work for 16 people. You bring joy to lots of couples. It's got to be a cool job. And you sound like you're having fun.
Always. It is always a good time. It is never a dull moment. I can be a very serious person. I'm definitely type A. I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to be just right. I want it to be done a certain way. So, these are all the things I teach my team, and, we hold each other accountable to those things. But one of the things I've really learned from my team is that it's okay to have fun. It's okay to really enjoy this process. Not only all the planning that goes into it for, sometimes 18 to 24 months, but on the wedding weekend itself.
Right.
And I have to remember that this is something I really am passionate about and I love, and it's okay to enjoy it. And I think, one thing I struggle with is no, this is for the couple to enjoy. It's their wedding day. They're the ones that get to enjoy it. But we're the ones who are bringing that vision to fruition and making sure all of those moving parts and pieces are working in harmony together. And so sometimes we just sort of step back for a minute and sort of look at what we've created and feel that happiness, feel that joy to say, oh my gosh, okay, we knocked it out of the park. This is all right.
Well, it's a party. You might as well have fun.
Exactly.
So for our listeners, if they want to find you, if they want to book a wedding in San Luis Obispo or have somebody that does, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we're on, all the socials, Insta and Facebook, Amanda Holder Events. And our website is amandaholderevents.com. So you can find us in any of those places. And we'd love to hear from you.
Well, it sounds like you guys have a great team, have a great time, and do a great job. So just a great, incredible story, Amanda. And thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your story. And best of luck going forward. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. We hope you were informed and inspired. Now we would like to ask a favor of you. If you could please leave us a review on the podcast platform and follow us, that would be great. And please share us with your network and help support minority business. Thank you.